Okay. Everyone, I am super excited that you guys are here. I'm super excited on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. So definitely let me know if you're here. Say hello. And awesome. And welcome to my people on Zoom. I can hear you and see you if you so choose, but no one else can. So don't worry. And you can chat if you want. We have a lot of really great stuff going on today. So I'm really excited about it. Let me just put that there. Awesome. Hello. So for those of you who are new and just joining me for the first time, my name is Sydney Montgomery. I am a law school admissions consultant and college counselor. As the first lawyer in my family and as a graduate of Princeton and Harvard Law School, I am really passionate about helping students break down generational barriers in their family and their life, step confidently into their future, and ultimately become fantastic attorneys. So I do this twice a month. I try to do it on all of my channels to answer really whatever questions that you have so that I can help you navigate the different ins and outs of the law school application process. So today we are actually going to focus on loan repayment assistance programs, or LRAP programs. Sometimes people get this confused or they hear about public service forgiveness programs. There's a lot of different versions of what it's called, a lot of different verbiage. So we're going to go through that today. We have some amazing questions that were sent in ahead of time, and we're just going to have a great conversation. So if you're not somewhere where I can see your comments, and that would be ideally in the Facebook group, or I can see your comments if you're on Instagram or in Zoom. Definitely get there so that I can interact with you, so that I can answer your questions and really make sure that you're getting served today. So the first question, and I think really I'm just going to start with an overview because the question was about, and then hello, Carrie, you're a mom of a future law school student. Wonderful. I love it. I love parents. There's a lot of information here that will be good for you as well as you help, is it your son or your daughter, kind of navigate the law school admissions process. Daughter in France, so fast asleep. Oh my goodness. Well, this will be recorded and on the Facebook group. So she can also watch it when she wakes up. I know there's 6 hours ahead, but you can ask questions now. You're such a good mom for being here. So, loan repayment assistant programs. What is that? What does that even mean? There are several different kinds and they vary based on school. So, really, to get an understanding of loan repayment assistant programs, you need to first just get an understanding of what the loan landscape looks like for law school. So when you're taking out, or when you're applying to law school and you've got your beautiful financial aid package, there are grants and there are loans. Grants can come in the form of either need-based or merit-based aid. Merit-based aid is going to be aid because you got a fantastic LSAT score, a really great GPA, or maybe you wrote an additional essay. That's money you don't have to give back because you are a fantastic applicant and they are using it to entice you to come to the school. Then there's need-based aid. Need-based aid could also be in the form of grants, and that's money that they're giving you that you don't have to pay back because your family doesn't make as much money. So those are two very different kinds of grant money. Now, need-based aid can also be in the form of a loan. It's a loan that you could get from the school that's saying, hey, we are going to finance you this certain amount of money because of your family's financial need or your own FAFSA. If you are above the age of 27 or if you are married or have kids, you are going to be kind of on your own. Your parents' finances aren't going to be taken into consideration. So, if that's the case, right, they're saying, hey, your financial situation, your income, your assets, what you've got in savings, we've determined that we're going to finance you this certain amount of money. And that money is coming through by way of loan. So that could be another need-based loan. Now, sometimes they don't tell you anything. They're like, cool, this is how much it costs. This is how much you're giving you. And you're saying, hey, there's a gap here. What do I do with that? And usually if that's not something that you can afford to pay, then that's something that you're going to be looking at taking out either a private loan, That could be with Sallie Mae, Wells Fargo, your credit union, Discover, what have you. Or that could be a federal loan, like a Grad Plus loan, or any other type of federal program, or a Parent Plus loan in some cases. But so those are federally funded loans. Now, the reason why I wanted to break down, again, we've got grants, we've got need-based grants and merit-based grants, and we've got loans, both school-sponsored loans and federally funded loans, because it's important when we talk about loan repayment assistance programs, what loans are being assisted, who's holding the loans, who's assisting you with the loans. So the type of program that most people are familiar with is this public service loan forgiveness program. It's like, I don't know, it's like magic words. Everyone's like, ooh, I want public service loan forgiveness. What does that mean? A public service loan forgiveness is actually a program that's really backed by the government. And it's saying for your government federally funded loans, not for your Sallie Mae loans, not for your Wells Fargo loans, not for the loans with the school itself, whether it's maybe through a provider like Heartland, ECSI, they hold all my loans. But your federal funded loans, maybe that's Great Lakes or some other federal service provider, we are going to forgive a certain percentage of your loans. We're going to forgive it, maybe not even a certain percentage. We're going to forgive maybe all of it, depending on the program, after you have worked for the federal for a public service for 10 years. That could be federal public service. That could be your local state legal aid. That could be sometimes a DA's office or working at a nonprofit. If you work in if you work in a public service type job for 10 years, then like I said, we will forgive all your loans. And people get really excited when they hear this, but I want to make sure that you understand that you still have to make loan payments for the first 10 years. So it's not like free money. Those programs are good, but you're also probably going to be in a job that doesn't make a lot of money, which is why you're looking to get your loans forgiven, right? Because you're in a nonprofit or you're doing really good work and you can't actually afford to make full loan payments. So what you're probably going to end up doing is putting your loans on some kind of income-based repayment program. The federal government has a couple of repayment options. Pay what you earn options are also there, but you're going to be put basically on some sort of graduated payment schedule based on your income through the federal government, through their repayment options for 10 years. And then after that, after you've probably heard the 120 qualifying loan payments. That's 10 years, 12 payments. Once you've made those 120 qualifying loan payments, then they'll say, great, you don't have to pay anymore. Those programs, like I said, they're okay. They're okay. But you have to really think about the fact that there's a couple caveats here. One is that you have to actually stay in a public service job for 10 years. Those types of programs aren't really opt-in, opt-out. And so as we've seen with COVID and the pandemic and just in general with life, sometimes, stuff happens. And you meant to stay working at legal aid for 10 years because you're dedicated to the people. But 3 years in, maybe you get married and you move to a different state, or you get laid off and you need to find a job and the only place that's hiring is a private law firm. And hey, you need to put food on the table. So you're going to take that job. Well, now you're actually not eligible for that public service loan forgiveness at the end of 10 years. And so you want to be really careful with those programs. Now, all of these programs are school specific, and Carrie had asked a really good point. She said, it seems like, the question was posed, it seems like that the public service or the loan repayment assistance programs get more generous the more elite you go in terms of school and rankings. And that's actually kind of true because it's really a function of their endowment. At the lower ranked schools, you'll see if you Google, even if you Google any school, even a mid-ranked or mid to low-ranked school, like let's take PACE, for example. If you Google PACE Law School Loan Repayment Assistance Program, what you'll come up with is their loan assistance, but it's not really their loan assistance. They're actually just giving you information on how to access the federal government's loan assistance programs. Because you'll see when you click into it that there's two different kinds of options. They say, we'll help you get on income-based repayment. Okay, great. I was eligible for that anyways after I took out my federal loans. And we will help forgive your loans through the federal, well, like your federal loans through the Federal Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Also great. Was also entitled to that. That's not special to PACE Law. You're just helping me see the options I already had. Because the endowment money is not there for PACE to fund their own program. Now, when you move up, for example, on the other end of the program, if you look at Harvard and Yale and Stanford and their loan repayment assistance programs, they're funding it. Like Harvard is cutting you a check. And that's why they have such a larger definition of what types of jobs qualify for those kind of programs. And that's why you'll start to see something a little bit different. Instead of saying, hey, make 120 qualifying loan payments, and at the end of 10 years, we'll forgive it, they're saying, hey, every 6 months, I want you to apply, and we will cut you a check to cover your loans based on a certain percentage or participant contribution, and we'll get into what that means, right? So I actually was on Harvard's, and they call their LRAP program the Low Income Protection Plan, which I cringe, but that's the name of Harvard's program. It's Harvard's LIP program. And so what it is on the very other end of the spectrum is you don't have to work public interest. You just have to work a qualifying legal, nonprofit, or government job, education, nonprofit, or government job, within a certain income bracket. So everyone, based on the amount of debt that you're coming into the program with, you will have a certain kind of financial cap, somewhere around 120, roughly, maybe 150 for a salary, depending on how much debt you're coming into. And so they're saying, great, as long as you make below X, we will continue to help you. If you make under 55, you will basically pay nothing. And then, if you're going to make closer to 120 or 150, like, okay, yeah, you're going to be paying the lion's share of your loans. But between that, we're going to take a percentage and you're going to take a percentage, and we're just going to keep cutting you a check every 6 months to actually help you make your payments. And you can do that for up to 10 years. And it doesn't have to be consistent. So you can do 5 years in the program, and then you can make $1 million for 3 years. And then you can decide that you want to now work for legal aid, and you can reapply for the program. Maybe not $1 million because your assets are actually taken into consideration. But you know what I'm saying? You don't have to worry about always having a qualifying job or losing all of your benefits, because you actually get the benefits in the 6 months from which you apply. So they're always reevaluating, and you're always able to say, yes, this program is working for my life right now. No, this program is not working for my life right now. But I'm getting my money so that I'm actually able to make the full loan payments. So when we look at the difference in those two programs, right, one that is just solely the Federal Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, and another that is a much more school-sponsored program on the federal side, on the side that's not a school-sponsored program, you are making full payments, but you are most likely changing your repayment terms to income-based repayment. So they're forgiving your loans after 10 years, but you're putting your loans on probably a 15 or 20-year plan, and they're just forgiving it after 10 years. On the other hand, when you look at a more school-sponsored program like Harvard, you're putting your loans on a 10-year program. And they are helping you pay your loans, making full loan payments. So you're not putting your loans on an income-based repayment, because the income-based portion is being taken care of by your school. Whatever you can afford, so says your school on this program, the school will cover. And so that's a very different program. And I'm going to go into them a little bit deeper, because this is where things get really tricky. I really like to make sure that people aren't conflating all loan repayment assistance programs, one, with public service programs or public interest programs. Because at some schools, especially at the top schools, they have a very broad definition of what jobs qualify. It's not just legal aid. For myself, I was a family attorney. Family law in a private practice setting, when you're doing divorce and custody, does not count as public interest for most of these programs. So I wouldn't have been able to opt into any of the federal public service interest programs. However, on the other end, right, I really liked being in a program that not only was flexible in terms of what job I could work, but also was helping me pay my loans down faster. So the year that I made 55, or even when I was clerking and I wasn't even making that, Harvard covered my loans completely those years. And then in the first few years, or when I was an attorney and an associate, Harvard covered at least 80% of my loans. And so they're writing me a check. I'm putting it in a special place, in a special bank account, and I'm using that to pay my loans. And they also take into considerations taxes for your loans as well. So even when I'm not in the program anymore, those 3 or 4 years, however many it ends up being, they will have really helped me pay down my loans significantly more so than if I had only done 4 years in the public service interest forgiveness program and I was putting them on an income-based repayment and I was making, I don't know, $200 or $300 loan payments. I wouldn't have really been making a dent on my loans, and God forbid something happened where I couldn't stay the full 10 years in the public service interest forgiveness program, then I would have been stuck with a pretty large loan balance to pay. So I just want to check in with you guys because like I said, I'm going to keep digging into it, but I want to make sure, are there questions about this? Do you guys understand? Have I lost you? I'm hoping that I haven't lost anyone. Let me just check in here and see. Okay, I think we're good, so I'm gonna keep going. Okay, John says all good. So when you're trying to decide, okay, I'm at these schools, and someone on Instagram, Ms. Concierge, says very informative. Thank you. Um, okay, and so there's a question. Carrie says, I still don't understand the 3 to 4 year thing. Does that mean that Harvard would help you pay it off sooner than 10 years? So to your question originally, I think it was saying that you would have to make qualifying loan payments for 3 to 4 years. Let me make sure that I understood your question correctly. I think it's that you have to make qualifying loan payments. They were saying 3 to 4 years, and then they would forgive it after 10 years. In a forgiveness type program, right? So I think it's really important to draw the distinction between an assistance program and a forgiveness program. In a true loan repayment assistance program, and I'm going to talk about some of the schools that have really good ones and some of the categories or factors to consider with them. But in a true assistance program, the school is actually helping you. So nothing is being forgiven. Your loans are absolutely not being forgiven. They're just helping you pay it. And usually they're helping you pay it over a 10-year period. Not any sooner, but in a 10-year period. I'm just going to be real transparent and honest with you guys and break it down because sometimes I think transparency is the best key. So I went into law school knowing and choosing a law school based on loan repayment assistance programs. Like I said, I knew that family law wasn't necessarily one of those things that would qualify for public service interest forgiveness. I also knew that I, didn't come from a family that was really going to be able to financially support me and my law school career. I would really need to figure out how to pay for this. And so when I chose Harvard, it was with the understanding that, yes, I was taking out a good number of loans. I got $30,000 in grants, which is their full amount at the time of need-based grant money. I had to take out some need-based loan money from the school itself, and then I borrowed the rest. So when it was all said and done, also, I rolled in my undergrad debt because some of these programs will roll in your undergraduate debt. So when it was all said and done, I had about $207,000 of debt, which is a really scary number, right? So, I don't regret it. I would do the 100%. I would do it again because of these conditions. So I had about $207,000 of debt when I left Harvard, and the monthly payment on that is kind of around $3,000. It's like 2,700, roughly 2,800. So let's just round it. Pretty numbers are great. 200K, $3,000 a month. Under an assistance program, Harvard would determine, based on my salary, how much money I theoretically should be able to afford to pay on my loans. And like one year it was like $50 a month. And I was like, great, you got it. Which meant that they covered and sent me money for $2,950 a month, right? They sent me a check for 6 months times that amount to make my full $3,000 loan payment. I paid 50, they paid the rest, and hey, we have a loan payment. And that means that my loans were set to be paid off in a 10-year period. If I had instead done a public service forgiveness program, what that would have happened with that $200,000, it would not have been on a 10-year plan. Because again, on 10 years, that's $3,000 a month with interest, right? So instead, if I were to refinance my loans and put them on an interest-based repayment program, they would stretch out my loans. So I'm not paying it in 10 years. I'm paying it in maybe 20 or 30 years or something, which for me, I'm very uncomfortable with. I just would like to be out of debt by the time I'm 34. I went into law school. I graduated law school when I was 24. I went in when I was 21. I knew I was going to be debt-free by the time I was 34. I am very committed to that number. Super committed. And so for me, I was just unwilling to be in law school debt for 20 or 30 years. But if I was on a public service interest forgiveness program, right, they would stretch that out so that I could be in an income-based repayment plan so that they would get my monthly payments down to 50 or 100 or 150, whatever it is that they determined I can afford. But they're stretching the loan out so that I can do that. Because listen, the federal government's going to get their money. All right? The federal government's going to get all their money because they're going to tack on some interest too. But in a forgiveness program, what would happen is that after 10 years of paying, let's just say I never get a raise. I'm in a terrible job. I never get a raise in 10 years. And for some reason, I don't ask for one. You should always ask for a raise. But let's just say I'm in the same job with no raise for 10 years and I'm paying $100 a month. And I make 120 qualifying payments at $100 a month. Then, at the end of the 10 years, they will forgive it. Now, I have paid, about $120,000 of my own money. And at that point, my $200,000 has collected so much interest, it's probably $300,000. So, but they're forgiving, the rest of that. After I've made my 120th qualifying payment, they are forgiving the rest of that. Those are two very different situations. It is quite possible, actually, that I end up spending more money on the public service forgiveness program. It's possible that I spend the same, but it's possible that I spend less and actually end up paying less money if I had taken an assistance program, depending on who has determined what I can pay. If Harvard says we think you can afford to pay $50 and the federal government says we think you can afford to pay $150, well, I might end up paying more over the next 10 years. But the thing that I like is that at the end of 10 years with an assistance program, the loan is paid off. Right? It's paid off. And I don't have to worry about what happens if in the middle, if in year 5 I leave and I get, like I said, a different job or a non-qualifying job, I still have those 5 years that are mostly paid off. And then I can take the rest of the 5 years, and if I need to refinance them somewhere else, I can. With the public service forgiveness program, one, I'm relying on the federal government to actually keep their word, which, it depends on how you feel about the federal government. I like to have a little bit more surety. And it also depends on, whether you think you'll actually be able to make that 10-year commitment. Because like I said, in those situations, if you don't do 10 years, then you don't get the benefits of having your loan forgiven. And that's something to really keep in mind. Delisha said, my heart palpitations from that number. Yeah, it was a big number. When you're comparing LRAP programs, loan repayment assistant programs, there are things that you really need to take into consideration. We talked about eligible jobs because that is just a category where if you're not really sure that you're going to spend the next 10 years in public service, you're not really sure exactly what you want to do, you want a program that's going to have more flexibility. You also want to talk about and think about your personal finance after law school. So, like I said, you want to think about all eligible debt. For me, my loans from undergrad, and I didn't have that many because Princeton has a very generous financial aid program, which they really try not to give you any loans. But I did have some. I had to borrow from my parent contribution. And so that was able to be put into the amount that Harvard would help me pay back, which was huge. Another example is Stanford's program. As of 2020, Stanford's program covered all loans, all need-based loans at all educational limits. So your master's, your whatever it is, with no limits, okay? This is not the norm. Most schools covered debt accrued at their institution only because they're self-interested. Some law schools also let you roll in bar loans. A bar loan is a loan that you take to usually pay for the bar and for the couple of months when you're not really working because you're studying for the bar. You want to think about repayment schedules. Most repayment schedules are 10 years. You want to think about what that income cap is. Like I said, if you make $50,000 or I think it's up to 55, I think now at Harvard, you're paying nothing. I mean, there are some downsides, but you're not paying any of your loans back. And so that's pretty good. You're not even paying them on an income-based schedule. Like, listen, if you were to go to the federal government with $55,000 salary, they're going to figure out what you can afford. And they're going to get some kind of check from you every month. And so that's what I was saying. You might end up paying more in certain situations because there's going to be income cutoffs on the bottom end for some of these loan repayment assistant programs funded through the schools at the higher end, in which case you're actually not going to be paying any of your loans. And that's, again, talking about income requirements. You also want to look at the cap on the other end. So, for example, I think University of Chicago, their cap is about $80,000 to be part of the program. But for a lot of schools in the T5, they can go all the way up to 100, 120, that sort of thing. You want to look at assets, especially if you're coming into law school a little bit older, right? If you already have a 401k, you already have savings, all those things. Each law school will figure your income differently based on your number of assets in terms of repayment. For example, Stanford counts any asset over $130,000 as income. Chicago simply uses your adjusted gross income. And Duke assesses anything over $15,000 as income, which is, it's different, right? The vast majority of T14 schools don't have any kind of asset allowance whatsoever. So what that means is basically you can have assets, right? You can have at Stanford, right? You can have $130,000 in your retirement account, for example. I'm simplifying it grossly. And they wouldn't count that towards your asset allocation. I know at Harvard, for every year out that you've been, you get a little bit more in asset protection and asset shield, which can be really important if you're trying to put money away, for example, to buy a house or to save for kids' tuition for college or, no matter where you kind of are in that. Speaking of kids, dependent and marital status also affects this whole equation. For some schools, if you are married, it is the joint income. For some schools, it is the joint income if your spouse makes more than you. Or for some schools, it's if your spouse makes the same or more than you. But if they make a penny less, their income does not factor in. So especially if your husband or wife doesn't have a lot of debt and all of their income can also help towards your loans, but maybe you make just a little bit more, those kind of programs can really help you actually pay down your debt a little bit faster. And then if you have kids, sometimes they give you even more of an income allowance. So maybe the cap was $55,000 to pay zero, but you've got 4 kids. God bless you if you've got 4 kids. But now all of a sudden you can make a little bit more and not pay anything towards your loans. So I think that like there are some schools like Northwestern, Duke, University of California, Berkeley, they give about a $5,000 per child allowance in income deduction. If you are married and your spouse makes more than you, for example, at Penn, at Michigan, at Cornell, at Georgetown, they will add your spouse's income to your income and divide it by 2 to get kind of an average calculated income. And then, like I said, if you are an older student who has accumulated assets, Duke, Yale, Harvard, and Stanford will offer you some kind of asset protection. And I'm going to retract my earlier statement. Sorry, this Penn, Michigan, Cornell, and Georgetown won't take into account your spouse's income, but a lot of other schools will. So I'm going to pause here and see if there are questions. Carrie, did I answer your question, or do you still have the question? I want to make sure that I get to it. Awesome. All right, let me just check in with you guys over here. Okay, so we have, I know I've been like really in the numbers with you guys today. I went to law school because numbers are not my favorite thing in the world. But I think it's really important that we have a frank conversation about numbers, because when you are looking at law schools and you are comparing your financial aid applications, like I know so many of you are right now, you need to have an understanding of how much money are they giving me that's free, how many grants am I getting, how much money are they giving me or financing for me, what money do I need to get on my own, how much of this am I actually going to pay back, and how am I going to pay it back, and what's the repayment terms. Because sometimes, unfortunately, what happens is we start comparing apples to oranges. We start looking at this scholarship offer and this loan package and this loan repayment assistant program and this public service forgiveness, and we're trying to compare them, and they're really not very comparable. Like, what I would suggest you do is really write it all out and have like separate pages for different scenarios and say, okay, in this scenario, I am borrowing $80,000. And 5 years from now, this is what it looks like. And this scenario with this school, I'm borrowing $60,000, but 5 years from now, completely different program, this is what it looks like. You know, and you should say, pick a median salary that makes sense for every school. So you can actually find a lot of that stuff on prelawplatform.com, law school numbers. You can find the median salary for the school and say, all right, well, at this school, the median salary is this. I know I want to go into this kind of job, or this type of job has a median salary of this, and I plan to stay in that kind of job for a few years. Then you can start to see what your money will look like. I want you to do a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, and maybe just say, like, if nothing in life goes awry or changes or unexpected, which honestly in life, you can almost expect the unexpected to happen. But if nothing unexpected happens, this is what I'll be at the end of 10 years. It's just a really good idea to get a snapshot of what your money is going to be looking like and what that looks like long term, because sometimes the school that looks like they're giving you the most money might be the school that you end up paying the most for. So you really want to be careful there. It's not enough to just compare the scholarship offers, and it's not enough to just say, well, I'm going to work in public interest, so my loans are going to be forgiven, so I don't need to really figure that out. You have to look at what the actual numbers are going to be. You have to see, is it really going to be forgiven? What are the stipulations? What if I get married? What if I have a kid? What if I get laid off? Because for a lot of these programs, unemployment does not qualify. You get laid off. They're not going to keep helping you during those months. So you want to be looking at that. What does maternity leave look like, or paternity leave? What happens if you get sick? These are the questions that I was not asking myself when I was 21 and looking at these programs. And I can tell you, I did get sick. I did get, unemployment during the pandemic at some point because of medical reasons. So things happen, and you want to have those conversations with the schools before they become issues. And so who do you talk to at the schools? You want to make sure that you're having conversations with Student Financial Services. They are going to be your go-to. Usually there is a person who's dedicated to public service loan forgiveness programs or dedicated to like the LRAP programs or just loans in general. Student Financial Services is going to be your go-to because they know those programs like the back of their head. And they can also honestly have frank conversations with you about the other school's programs. Well, this school says this. Can you tell me how your program is different or the same? Like, no shade in the game, really. It's not a secret or else you've gotten in. They should really want you to have the most information possible. So there is nothing wrong with saying, I'm trying to understand your program, but it's confusing because you have worded it confusingly. Maybe don't say that part, but they know. Can you help me understand how it differs from this program over here? What are the similarities? What are the differences? What do I need to consider so that I can make the most informed decision possible? I really stress to people, if you ask not, you receive not. And this is one of those situations, once they've already given you an acceptance letter, ask all the questions. All of them. They cannot take it back. They can't say, I'm sorry you've annoyed us. We are now rescinding your offer and all our scholarship money. They can't do that. No, they can for other reasons, if you start failing out of some classes or that sort of thing, but they're not going to rescind your offer because you've asked one too many financial aid questions, or even set up a meeting with financial aid. Ask to do a Zoom meeting. That's something that you can do as well. You've got a lot of power in this situation, so I want to encourage you to use it. Now, one person did ask, okay, so if I am interested in getting a qualifying job, what does that look like? How do I do that? And so, like I said, the first thing is figuring out what the qualifying job means to your school. If you are looking at the very traditional federal public service forgiveness programs, then you are going to be looking at legal nonprofits and maybe government work, DOJ, or even a DA's office. How do you go about getting those jobs? Very similarly to how you might have gotten an internship or a job in college. So usually most schools will have a 1L job fair that you can go to and you can meet prospective employers. If you go to a nationally ranked law school, you'll get employers from across the country. If you go to a regional law school, you'll get employers from that region. And that is a really great opportunity to get yourself out there. Now, if you're at a school that doesn't have a 1L job fair, and maybe your affinity group doesn't have a job fair as well, then the old-fashioned way that we all used to get internships, you would research. These are the programs that I'm interested in. Maybe you say, I'm really interested in human rights or criminal defense, and you would literally just start researching, figuring out what the programs are, figuring out what the requirements are. Is there a GPA requirement? Is there an alumna at your school who you can talk to about their experiences? It always helps if you can find someone who has gone to your school who is at the job that you're trying to be at. Maybe also it's talking to career services. Even if they don't have a job fair, you're going to career services and you're saying, hey, can I make an appointment? There is almost certainly a person whose job it is to help 1Ls navigate that first career transition. Can I make an appointment and sit down and talk to someone about what I'm interested in? And then they can talk to you about, hey, these are some places that students have applied to and have great success. So then you would do that internship, and sometimes that internship will turn into a job for the next summer. Sometimes it won't. It depends on the program and the staffing and the organization. But then you would do it again for your 2L summer. And for most public service jobs, this is different from most firm jobs. Most firm jobs, you do on-campus interviewing at the end of your 1L summer for your 2L summer. And at the end of your 2L summer, you'll usually get an offer from the place that you summered at for after graduation. For most public service jobs, it is not the same pattern. You will actually be applying to jobs, again, like like you know how to in the world with your resume and your cover letter, and you will be sending out applications your 3L fall, usually, sometimes your 3L spring, to see who needs help, right? Who is hiring? What are the organizations? What are the contacts that you made over the last 2 summers? What are the alumni that your school has been able to put you in contact with? Who is on LinkedIn? All sorts of very typical job getting things to help you. Now, the question was, do we need to be focused on clinics, and will that help us? Sure. Yes, I mean, I think clinics are invaluable hands-on experiences, not just for getting a job, but just in general for figuring out what kind of law you want to do. But yes, that's something that can add to your resume that will help make you more attractive as having a little bit more experience when you're graduating from law school and you're applying to jobs. However, I would not expect your clinics to turn into a job. That is generally not how they work. Sometimes people are able to extern at local firms while they're in law school. Maybe they're working their 2 or 3L year as a law clerk at a firm, and that firm is able, if they have the space, to say, hey, you've been really great. After you pass the bar, why don't you shoot us your resume, and we'd love to see if we have space for you here. Or maybe they'll offer you an offer before you even graduate, which is fantastic. I know that my firm in Bethesda, where I was at, had a really great relationship with law clerks and was able to offer, a few of them positions as they were able to graduate. And so that worked out really nicely. But some of them don't have the capacity, or they don't hire every year. It depends on if it's a big organization or a small organization. So my best bet to you is, if you're saying I really want to work in public interest, then be on the lookout for opportunities and use your career services all the time to help you get your foot in the door, to get experiences that you can add to your resume that will help you get that job. Now, I will say that almost every kind of area of law has both a public and a private side to it. So I mentioned that I was a family attorney, and there is public interest family law, working at legal aid or working with children in the welfare system. And then there is private family law, working with divorce and custody and mediation, which is what I did. On immigration, there are private immigration firms, and there are pro bono immigration firms. For civil rights, for almost literally every kind of law that you can imagine, there is both a private and a public interest sector to it. And that's why when students say, I want to do public interest law, I have no idea what that means. First off, that literally there's like at least 15 areas of law that you could work in public interest. But also, I don't understand if you're interested specifically in working at a nonprofit firm because of the type of people that you want to help, or because you think that this type of law only deals in the public interest realm, or you just don't want to work at big law. I have to tell you, there's a lot of jobs out there that are not working in big law or corporate America. And I think a lot of times we get confused. We're like, there's corporate America and there's public interest. And that's not true. There's corporate America. There's the vast majority of lawyers, if we're going to be very honest with ourselves. And then there's public interest. Because there's employment attorneys, and there's malpractice attorneys, and there's the traffic attorney, and there are so many kinds of attorneys that you might encounter in just like your regular human life that are neither public interest nor corporate law. So I want you to really dig into that question of, why do I want to do public interest? And again, depending on where you're going to school, you don't even need to be in a public interest quote unquote job to get loan assistance. And so I think that's just really important to remember. You can work at various types of law, both public and private, and get loan assistance through your school if it's a program that your school offers. You can do public interest forgiveness. Forgiveness does not necessarily beat assistance. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's fantastic. I don't want you guys to think, oh, Sydney thinks that public service forgiveness programs aren't great. That's not what I'm saying at all. They are fantastic. It's a blessing. Any assistance is a blessing, but it's not the only assistance. And it's sometimes not even the best assistance. So I want you really to be doing your due diligence, comparing these programs, comparing what you want to do, comparing what's going to give you flexibility, and understanding that 10 years is a long time and a lot can change in 10 years. You could be a totally different person in 10 years in a totally different place of your life. So you want to make decisions that are going to benefit you and serve you in the long run. Okay, so it is 7:46. So I just want to check to make sure if there are any other questions on this topic. As you guys know, I always end with an optional prayer call. Totally fine for you to hop off. Totally fine for you to stay on. But I want to make sure if there are any questions about this or if I've said something. This is a harder topic to cover in a live. And I do enjoy covering it because I think there are a lot of things that I wish I had understood about this before I went into it. I still full-heartedly believe that I made the right decision and I would do it again exactly the same way. But I think I just would have prepared a little differently. I think I would have had a little bit of a different mindset. I think I would have maybe taken out less loans, if we're going to be honest. I definitely had the mentality of, well, Harvard's paying my loans anyways, and they paid a lot of it. But I didn't have a good understanding of loans when I made these decisions. I was 21. I had no concept of loans. I knew you told me where to sign. Promissory notes were something that I had to sign. And then we enrolled in school, right? Like, I didn't have a really good understanding of that. So there's a question, was I considered an independent in my LRAP, and does that help? No. So I'm going to divorce that. And I think this touches on a question earlier about like your participant contribution for your loan repayment assistance. Is that based on your FAFSA? No. How many loans you end up taking out, like whether you get grants or whether you get school-sponsored loans or you're getting loans through the federal government or through Sallie Mae, your aid package, that's based on your financial aid, your FAFSA, whether you're considered an independent. I was not considered an independent. I was 21. They definitely had me fill out my parents' financial information just like I was applying to college. There's really no difference. They actually, I think, even asked for a copy of my undergrad financial aid application. So I was 0% independent, nor should I have been, because I was still on my parents' insurance. I was 21. Right? The amount that you pay as a participant contributor for your LRAP program is 100% based on your income. And maybe how much debt you took out from undergrad and for law school. But at that point, it's not about your FAFSA, it's not about your parents, it's not about whether you're independent or not. Now, if the question is, does being independent and single and not married, if that helped, yeah, there's no one else's income to take into consideration. It's just me. I have a fantastic partner, but we're not married yet. He's great, but it's just me, right? So I did not have anyone else's income to take into consideration. I did not have any dependents to take into consideration. So it was just based on my income. So the participant contribution, you don't even know what it's going to be yet. That's the thing. That's why I said when you're looking at the LRAP programs, I want you to use like the median salary for that law school, because you could be big balling out here, with $180,000 as your salary, and you are not getting loan assistance. No, you are not. But the cool thing is that hopefully, if you positioned your coins correctly, you can afford your loan payments, right? Or you could have a heart of gold and take a job where you're not really making a lot. And you might get 100% assistance from an LRAP program, depending on the school and the income cutoff. So that's something that you don't know yet going in. I had no idea. I knew I wanted to do family law. I knew that I wanted to come back to Maryland. We're in the suburbs. The average salary is anywhere from, $60,000 to $85,000 as a first-year associate. So I had a general understanding of what I was looking at in terms of like, okay, this is probably what my participant contribution might look like, but I didn't know for sure going in. I just knew that I wasn't going to corporate. I wasn't going to Big Law. All my friends out there with their $190,000 salaries and $50,000 Christmas bonuses. And it sounds very nice. I was not doing that because I don't want to work that hard. Not that I don't work that hard. I don't want to work that long, right? They have really long hours. And it's not the kind of law that I wanted to do. There's no big law, family law. Like, I just really wanted to work with families. So I had an idea of what I wanted to do and an idea of what that median salary would be, but I didn't know, okay, coming out, my participant contribution will be X. And also, the thing about these programs is that they're constantly updating themselves. So actually, there was a kind of a push or a petition to reform the low income protection plan while I was at Harvard. It got changed my second year, and then I think changed again my first year out. So now it includes part-time work, and now it includes up to $50,000 of undergraduate debt, which is honestly so generous. But those are things that were not in place when I first made the decision to go in. So you always want to be understanding that these programs can change. Usually they don't change to hurt you. Usually they're only changing for the better. But they're school-based programs, so they can change whenever they really want to. So student contribution is based on salary and not on FAFSA. The FAFSA, after you accept your package, I mean, they will use it year after year. You will reapply to financial aid every year. But then after, when we're talking about repaying your loans, it is just straight up your salary, your taxes, your W-2s. They usually have your employer do some kind of certification to make sure that you actually work where you say you work. And that you actually didn't get any secret raises or bonuses or all that good stuff, because all that stuff gets factored in. And, depending on whether you're married or not, they may take into your spouse's taxes as well. And then they like to see that you're actually paying your loans. That's the other thing. They do want to make sure their money is going where you said it's going. You cannot take all that good money that you get in that check up front and then go buy a yacht. They will be very upset with you, and you will have to give them their money back. So it is sort of like based on your income. The reason why the schools are basing it on your income is because they want to incentivize you from let's take a PR standpoint, right? Like, Harvard is very expensive. I told you I came out with a lot of loans, but they don't want anyone to say, well, Harvard costs so much that none of these trained lawyers can go do any good in the world. They want to say, no, look, we're enabling our graduates to be on the ground and to help those seeking asylum and to, help the domestic violence workers and all of these things, right? They're like, we are enabling our graduates to go and follow their passion, the thing that they wrote their personal statement about. We are enabling them to do that because we are not strapping them down to these loans. We are actually giving them the ability to do that, but they want to make sure that their money is going to good places and that it's not because of a lifestyle that you've chosen. You're not living above your means and still getting money, because it is not an endless pot, but that you're living reasonably and, budgeting reasonably, but you're getting help where you need it. And so that's kind of why they like to base it off of income, so that they have enough money to go around. Well, I mean, Harvard has enough money where it could be free. But for other schools, that they have enough money to go around, and they're enabling you to be respectful and responsible with your finances and also do good in the world. Okay. Last check for questions. And if you guys have more questions, like I said, I do this twice a month. Soon, be on the lookout. I'm going to start doing this a little bit more often. If you haven't already, so shout out to you guys that are still listening. I have put out an absolutely new guide. I'm really excited about it. It's completely free. It is called The Essential Guide to Applying to Law School, and it is a labor of love. I have just really been thinking about how I can help get more information into your hands. And so it is a guide that walks you through everything. It walks you through brainstorming. It walks you through drafting your personal statement, drafting your diversity statement, optional essays. It walks you through resumes and addenda and letters of recommendation. I'm going to go live with you and just walk you guys through the whole thing. But it is completely for free. If you go on my website, it's totally free. It's like 60 pages, guys. But it's like if you really just need to apply to law school and you're like, Sydney, I don't have any coins. I'm a first-gen minority student, and I'm really trying to do this thing on my own, but I'm really in need and desperate need of quality assistance and help. There's like little areas for you to write down your outlines and write down your notes. Please go get this guide. Share this guide with your friends and your family. I want to make sure that anyone that wants to have quality advice in applying to law school is able to get quality advice in applying to law school. So I will make sure that I post about that tomorrow as well. All right, so I'm going to close this out, guys. I love being with you, and just be in the Facebook group and be on the lookout. Dear Heavenly Father, we just come to you and we say thank you. Thank you, first off, for being the God that provides, for sending acceptance letters and options and financial aid packages and loans and grants and assistance programs. We thank you that you have given the schools provision and the generosity of heart to help out their graduates so that they can be the kingdom on the ground, that they can help in the areas that are most needed, that they can do the good work, that they can do public interest work, that they can help out those who can't afford an attorney, that we live in a world in which we are able to modulate our loan payments so that we are still able to provide for our families and provide for our needs. So first off, I just thank you for always making a way out of no way, for always just opening up and being a miracle worker. I thank you that we have gotten to this point, some of us, where we have gotten acceptance, just that yes, just that confirmation that you are on the right path, that you are going to be an attorney, that you are going to create general wealth and create generational blessings is just more than some of us could have asked for, dared to hope for, or dream. So I thank you for being a trailblazer in their lives and in the lives of their families. I also thank you for just this community, for allowing us to be together, for allowing me to be here and able to help in any way that I can, help the future generation of attorneys. I ask that you would go with them and that you would provide guidance and clarity and wisdom. I know that so many people listening have some tough decisions to make. I know that deposit deadlines are right around the corner in April and in May. So I ask that you would bring guidance and clarity to the process. I ask that you would make the choice clear. I ask that you would close doors that you don't want people to go through, and yet you would bust open doors that you do want them to go through with no hesitation, no confusion, that they know that absolutely this is the school that is going to best set me up to be the attorney that I need to be. I ask a blessing over all of those who are still waiting on waitlist offers. Dear Heavenly Father, this application season was like nothing we have ever had, but you are like nothing that we have ever experienced. We know that applications were up 35% this year, but we also know that you are bigger than that. You are bigger than the rise in applications. You are bigger than the competitiveness of the season. For those who are still waiting on waitlist offers, I ask again that you would open the doors that no man can shut, that you would help them in their drafting of letters of continued interest, that you would guide them in the best way to stay in contact with the schools, that you would guide them in the best way to advocate for themselves and to show the admissions committee why they are deserving of a spot at that school. And if it's a school that they're not supposed to be at, I ask that you would lock up that door so that they are not able to be confused or detracted in their goals and their setup. Dear Heavenly Father, I ask that you would be with all of those who are just starting the process, that you would be with those who are I ask that you would be with those who are trying to figure out if they should get their personal statement together, or what they should write about the personal statement, who are trying to figure out how to study for the LSAT, what the LSAT even is, that there's a lot of confusion and stress in the beginning of the process. And I ask that you would come in with your guardian angel, and that you would be a hand of calm over the anxiety, that you would calm all of their fears, that you would calm all of their doubts, that voice that says, why am I doing this? I'm not good enough to be a lawyer. Why am I doing this? That you would say, because I have called you to be such, and you are worthy because you are mine. I ask that you would instill confidence in them as they embark in this season. I ask that you would be there for them, that you would not let any burden get too heavy, but that you would show them that you are with them every step of the way. I thank you for their determination. I thank you for their desire to pursue this path. I thank you for their obedience to your call, dear Heavenly Father, and I ask that you would remind them that they are never alone in this process, but that as long as they have you, they have all that they need. I ask all of this in your Son's precious name. Amen. So guys, thank you for spending your Sunday with me. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for being here and just being awesome. As always, I will be in the Facebook group. And if you need anything, I'm always here for you guys. So just message me or reach out. I will see you guys very soon. Bye.